When I was 17 and 18 years old, I was a stripper for like, I don't know, a month or something like that. I went to this bar with a fake ID that I bought for like 25 bucks or 50 bucks from a friend of mine who looked like me, but he had brown eyes. This bar, by the way, was in Athens, Georgia. I was going to the University of Georgia. Anyway, so I go to this bar, and this bar, it turns out, has a stripper contest, like a strip contest for men. So I was like, well, I'll do that. So I'm like, oh my God, I could win $100 or $1,000 or some, amount of money that I didn't have as a college kid. So I entered this contest, did all these dances and shit. I learned how to do all this stripper, male, sexy dance bullshit. They call my name on the dance floor, and I go out there and I did all this dancing and stripping, and everybody's whoo, hoo, hoo, hoo. And I get off, and everybody's like, oh, that was great. And then there were some other people, and then this big, giant, beefy gym rat guy comes, Schwarzenegger type. He comes in there and he's all, look at my big square monster body. And then, I don't mean monster in a bad way. Every body is beautiful. So he takes off his clothes, but he's kind of standing in one spot. He is what you would call back in the day muscle bound. He couldn't move anything. He didn't do any yoga. He didn't stretch. He looked like the Hulk. He looked like just a bunch of octagon stone pieces all glued together. So then they announce the results and they go in 5th place, 4th place, 3rd place. And then it's between me and this big giant, big mountain man. And the mountain man won. Even though I was like better at taking stuff off. Who gives a fuck about that? This guy had, like, rah, rah. But the best part of this experience was yet to come because I was offered money to go strip in women's houses. And I was like, okay, that sounds fantastic. I'm still poor. So one of these women who paid me to come over to her house, I get there. It's the same thing. I take my clothes off slowly. I do the moves. So I get down to these fantastically gold underwear. They might have been my sister's. So I don't know if you can imagine what the scene was, but it was a lot like, rawr, 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 rawr. It was very rowry. So then all of a sudden this woman says, come with me. And I go, what? And then I didn't know what was going to happen. I thought I was going to get my money. I did get my money, hundreds of dollars. And she shuts the door, and I'm like, uh-oh, what's about to happen? I thought, am I going to get murdered? Man, I was so stupid when I was a teenager. I thought she was going to murder me. And she says, come with me. And she takes my hand and she puts me in the bed and I'm laying down. And I've got my like performative underwear on. And I'm laying there and she's all, wow. And then she's like, I'll give you this many hundreds of dollars for sex. And I'm like, what? I thought we were just gonna have sex. And she's like, no, you're like a college student. You shouldn't be doing this for no money. You should be doing this for money. Like she was really gonna pimp me out. I was flattered. When people hit on me very hard or very light or very medium or offer me money, I'm flattered. So if any of you guys want to offer me money for sex, okay, so then I'm like, you're going to give me all this money that I could use for my college books and my tuition and blah, blah, blah. Like that would be amazing. I would really like that. I was really into this idea. But I also had this thing in my head, which is if I do this, I will not be able to run for president someday. At this point, I'm a stripper. I'm in this strange bed in a strange house, and a beautiful woman who I wanted to be with romantically anyway is demanding I take a bunch of money, and then she drops another bomb. She's married. This is probably the real reason for the money, because if she gives me money, then she can control this relationship. So you're thinking like, Doug, you're 17, 18 years old, and you're stupid. So of course you took that money and slept with that married woman. And the answer is, I did not. I did not. I did not. I had an ex who had cheated on me and I didn't like the way it felt. So when that happened, I was like, I am never going to make someone feel like this. So I go no. And then this woman can't fucking believe that, she's probably never had anybody say no to her in her life. And here's some college kid saying no with money attached. So I barely get out of there alive. Emotionally. And I'm driving home and I'm very excited because I've stripped and everybody was excited about that. And then I get this offer for sex. And so I'm driving my shitty 1974 Dodge Colt station wagon back to my apartment. And I'm thinking like, am I ever going to be able to turn down this money ever again? No. So I have a choice before me. I can either become a sex worker, or I'm not going to strip anymore because it's going to lead to sex and money for sex, which is going to turn me into a sex worker, which I don't have a moral problem with. My entire life, including currently, I am very pro sex worker. I think sex workers should be legal all over the world, and especially in America, and certainly here in Las Vegas. But when I was driving home, there weren't any kind of like cyber sex workers yet. It was all person to person. A lot more dangerous fun than anything else. I was pretty turned on by it. I was like, I could be a sex worker. This sounds amazing. I could just strip and get with people for cash and become a millionaire in a couple of years and never have to work again. But on the other hand, what if I become a white collar worker? Is this going to get in the way of my life? So I certainly wasn't feeling shame. So I wasn't worried how I felt about sex work. I thought it was great. I was worried about how potential employers might view of the fact that I had been a sex worker. So I told myself, no more of this stripping. And it was legitimately the hardest career choice of my life, because to be a sex worker, to get that validation, I mean, it felt tremendous when people are clawing at your body and you're me and you have whatever complex I have where you want strangers like clawing at you. That was very fulfilling to me. So as you know, I've ended up in journalism and I've had a tremendous career so far, and it's still going on. But there is one thing I want to say about my journalism career in regard to the stripping and the sex work, which is some years later, I'm working at a newspaper. I worked at 10 newspapers for hundreds of editors. And so I had this one editor, and then they were saying like, hey, the marketing staff wants to put together this thing on you, so why don't you write up something about your past? And in that little thing I wrote that ran in what's called a house ad in newspapers, it had my name, it had my face, and then it had like some bullet points like, my first job was at Burger King or whatever, But one of the bullet points I had in there was that I had been a stripper as a teenager. I had been a teenage stripper. So I thought that would be great marketing. Like, hey, let's check out this cute guy who writes for the newspaper and used to be a stripper. You never know what he's going to say. He might talk about his stripping. But nope, the editor was like, no. We are a family, respectable place, and we can't have strippers working here. And I'm like, well, guess what? You've got a stripper working here. I was literally one driving decision away from becoming a full-blown sex worker and making millions of dollars. But instead, I decided to go into the public service of journalism. And what did journalism do? They were like, whatever you do, do not let your personality out. Now, of course, everybody's got a personality in journalism. And I think that's great. I want to know where my journalists' backgrounds are. The reason I wanted to tell this story today is because I've been thinking lately, and certainly the last year in America, I wonder if I should go into sex work at my age with my gray hair, because there's a niche for everything. And it's not like I want to make a lot of money. The thing that's alluring to me about sex work is the idea that it would validate who I am. It would be emotionally fulfilling to be wanted by strangers, because this is how I've always been. And so I want to tell you exactly the mindset I was coming from now. So let me tell you my cliched origin story for why I wanted to be a sex worker and why I still kind of in the back of my mind still want to be a sex worker. Even if I'm 90, I will still want to be on OnlyFans or whatever. 3D porn, mental mind hypnosis porn that I'm going to be in when I'm 92 years old and pretending to be a teenager or something. But what you need to know for this particular story is I was abandoned by my dad, and then I was abandoned by my mom, and then my mom popped back in, and then she abandoned me again. And I was raised by my siblings and my friends and my grandma Nana. My parents took off. They had decided they wanted to go live their own lives separately. They were divorced. They just wanted, one was like, oh, I want to go live this life, and one was like, I want to go live this life, and both of them were like, we don't want anything to do with you 3 kids. Now, fortunately, I was never bullied as a child at school. I was always really embraced at school. So I was very fortunate to have a great high school, but I went to 4 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, and a high school. So I went to a lot of schools. I was thrown around a lot. I was tossed around in a lot of different states and a lot of different cities. And so what this means is I didn't really have any roots with my mom and my dad. And, my older brother and sister took off. They were much older than me. So they weren't even around a large part of, big chunks of my childhood. So what I'm getting at is I'm very grateful to my siblings and my Nana and my friends for helping to raise me and teachers and other adults and my friends' families. But by the time that whole stripping sex work money scenario presented itself, it was just like, oh my God, somebody wants me. Because as a kid, I always felt like nobody really wanted me. My friends did, sometimes my siblings did or whatever, but there was no mom or dad, and it's impossible to replace that. So every single day of my childhood, I was either like, my dad doesn't want me, or my mom doesn't want me, or they both don't want me. Like, I am unwanted. There's no fucking worse feeling in the fucking world than feeling unwanted. It's the worst. But you know who wants you? People giving you money to strip and have sex with them. Oh my God, that sounded amazing. Like, not only do these people want me, but they want to pay for me in a way that my parents don't. I needed a coat once. I had no coat. I was in Athens, Georgia. I was fucking freezing. I got a message to my mother, who was in another city managing a rock band. And then months go by, and eventually she pops in. She just deigns to bring me this big, giant, puffy, horrible white coat. It made me look like Nanook of the North. It was all puffy. Like, I looked like what was called then the Michelin Man, but it was white. I needed a medium, and she got me an extra large. So it was huge. And I go, why did you? And it was cheap. Like, she got the cheapest coat in the world because she was giving all the money that she was making to the band that she was managing. What I'm getting at is I was a street urchin. Imagine that psyche. If you're going to write a psyche val on me and say, why would this guy who's had this great journalism career and still does, why would he ever wanted to have rather been a sex worker? I've loved my journalism career. Please don't get me wrong. It's been amazing. I've met Prince, and I've been blessed by Stevie Wonder, and I won awards. I've been on Good Morning America and Marketplace. I played myself in Sharknado 4. And one of the great things about journalism is you do get feedback because you're in the public domain. So, like, what I will say is that if you've ever done sex work and enjoyed it, that's me. There are a lot of people who enjoy sex work. So for the last year or so, I've been thinking like, oh, maybe I should be a sex worker because it was super fun. It would be great to do it again, especially at my age. I'm not 17 or 18 years old. I think I really enjoy it. But now one of the reasons that I'm not going to become a sex worker at this age is because I'm doing these videos now. And I'm not trying to give you a reason to keep watching these videos like, hey, if you don't watch these videos, I'm going to become an OnlyFans performer, a professional masturbator. I mean, can you imagine that kind of manipulation? So these video columns are now one of the things stopping me from starting an OnlyFans site or becoming like an in-person escort. A lot of times I'm like, Doug, don't get in another relationship, become an escort and take money to go with people places and then go back to their houses and do things with them. Now, the thing is, I know a lot of you are like, Doug, how come you haven't grown out of this? Some things you just don't grow out of, but some things you grow into. Anyhow, that is my tale of joy and woe today. I love you. I hope you're making this the best day of your life.